I just never had the right words to explain to people that I was in pain purely because I wasn't bleeding.
Sure.
And just because you don't bleed
on.
does not mean you're not in pain. So I studied psychology to really understand myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jade,
And I'm Bliss.
and this is TLT Talks. Welcome, guys. We're in the studio here today with A.B. Pieters. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And today we're going to chat a little bit about mental health, a very crucial topic for the times that we live in today. But before we get into that and dive deep, we're going to do some fun rapid fire questions. Are you guys ready for it?
I'm ready. Go for it.
Awesome. Bliss, if you want to throw in some questions here too, you're more than welcome, my friend.
Of course.
Burger or pizza?
Burger.
Oh, yes.
Trap or opera?
Opera.
McDonald's or Burger King?
McDonald's.
Yes, child.
Europe or Americas?
America.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Football or rugby?
Football.
Football as in like soccer or American football?
Football as in
Soccer.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I thought so too. All right, cool. That was interesting. Nice to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
So apart from doing rapid fire questions and having a bit of fun in studio, tell us a little bit about who A.B. Pieters is in your own words.
Well, Abraham is actually my birth name, and AB was created. I created this identity called AB when I pursued this industry called media, just so that, people get to know a version of me, because it's so important to also keep something sacred. So I keep Abraham quite sacred. But AB, born and bred in Cape Town. My dad is Namibian, my mom Cape Townian, so I'm like a citizen of both worlds.
Namibia.
Yeah, and I'm a teacher. I believe that
Amazing.
I was placed on this planet to be a educator, to be a teacher, and I think my name is my nature. If you think about it, Abraham, if you really want to go biblical terms, and I kind of grew into my name. So I believe I was placed on this planet to be a teacher and to remind people of their greatness. That's who AB is, a 28-year-old, quite curious about life and learning, and just constantly evolving.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Yes.
I think we miss the significance of a person's name. Like, every time you speak out a name, you're speaking out meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love the meaning that you just put to that biblically, but also just who you as AB have been exploring as a person
Exactly.
and finding who that identity is.
Yeah.
Great.
And kind of grew into it, because you kind of, it's almost like a butterfly, you
Yes.
kind of evolve every single day. And I like saying that, it's not my job to live up to other people's ideas of who I am. I get to reintroduce my dreams and who I am to myself every single day, every single hour.
That's
I
dope.
love that.
Yeah.
And then, as AB, I know you are a mental health advocate.
Yep.
And the background that you come from is a therapy space. How did you reach that point, or what led you to that point to become a mental health advocate, essentially?
I studied television and media. Let me say storytelling in a nutshell. And I have kind of merged psychology with it as well. And I think I've been marinated in this thing called communications, because a lot of people are like, media, psychology, AB, two different worlds, but
Yes.
the common denominator is communication, if you really think about it. And I think my love for people and being of service, and also my words, and I always believe as a writer myself, my pen has power.
Wow.
And it really contextualized where I find myself in this world as a human being. And I think media and psychology kind of expand my realm of knowledge in terms of just being a tool to kind of find my place in the world as a therapist. And before I'm a therapist and a TV producer, I'm AB, if you really think about it. But the most important part of the psychology aspect of it all, I suffer from depression, not suffered, because depression to me is like a symptom. It comes and it goes, but some people obviously choose to stay in that situation. Sure. Some people make it their destination.
Sure.
But I just never had the right words to explain to people that I was in pain purely because I wasn't bleeding.
Sure.
And just because you don't bleed does not mean you're not in pain. So I studied psychology to really understand myself.
Wow.
Yeah. And then grew into the purpose of helping people.
Sure. I love that. That's so powerful. I think whenever someone specializes in any field, it's actually really valuable to have experience within that place or field yourself before thinking, wow, maybe this is something I can go into and help
Exactly.
others with.
Exactly.
Student becomes teacher kind of a
Exactly.
thing.
And I mean, now, you can't help people, or you probably can, but now because I understand my own pain, I have so much compassion for whether you are a president or a homeless person.
Sure.
Because, some of our pain is just covered in prettier book covers. Yeah.
Come on. I
Yeah,
love
for
that.
sure.
Yeah, because
Empathy is such a big thing.
it
And
is.
what I'm hearing is not just compassion, that's coming down to the core of what
Totally.
empathy is.
I'm a cognitive empath.
I love that. So coming back to that and talking about mental health and where you were and kind of how you got into becoming an advocate for mental health, why is mental health so important?
First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for having this conversation in the beginning of the year, because International Mental Health Month is usually celebrated in May.
Yeah.
And then in South Africa, we celebrate it in October. So the fact that we're having this conversation right now is so aligned with my principles, because I am an advocate for mental health every single day.
Sure.
But I think it's an important awareness just to echo out to people who are suffering from any kind of illness that, listen, you are deserving of care. You are deserving of hope.
Yeah.
And that's why I've really made it like a daily exercise. I don't wait for May and October and forget about all of the other 10 months out of the year while you look at the rates of the suicide, death rate, statistics in our society. So it makes no sense to just celebrate it in 1 month. So I've made it like a daily kind of mantra and exercise.
Sure.
Yeah, I got you.
Love that.
And then your focus is basically on young people. And if you look at the South African spectrum, I mean, you see articles on drum, like we are a high-risk group. Why did you decide to fit that gap and to cater to the young individual, the teenagers and the young adults? What inspired that?
Because wherever I go, young people are never included in the mental health conversation,
Sure.
to be honest with you. And what we now know is that 50% of all mental illnesses develop before someone is 14 years old.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But if you look around our society, you have so many adults who don't even know they have mental illnesses. And what I always tell parents is, what you don't repair, you repeat. And that's why I've really made young people my focus. And also, I'm a young blood myself. And I really do understand the struggles that we go through.
Yeah.
I totally understand why a young person would go look for love on social media. I totally understand that, because nowadays our parents don't even utter the words "I love you." "I love you" come in the form of, "Are you home safe? I bought you this," but never "I love you." So that's the reason why I made young people my focus.
Just still on the topic of young people and the importance of having to impart this truth and this value of mental health into that demographic. Why do you think there's a big gap with young people? What are the things that lead to their biggest mental health blockages or I don't want to use the term that you use with depression as a symptom, but why are they suffering? Why are young people suffering? What is leading them to all of these symptoms of mental health struggles?
Listen, I go back to generational pathology. Our parents, first and foremost, grew up with this belief a child is seen and not heard. That to me is suppression. So first and foremost, we live in a society where our parents and young people don't have the emotional literacy to express themselves. We go to school to learn about maths and physical science, but no one teaches us about emotional literacy. So we live in a society where our emotional libraries are depleted, and it starts from the head down,
Absolutely.
our parents. So we really have to go beneath, look further than just the young people and go to our parents and our grandparents, because again, mental health, a lot of our elders make mental health a faith issue
Yeah, it's true.
and not a medical issue. And that's where we make the problem. Okay, you better go to church and go pray that away. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I also think like in regards to the young people, you saying that it's hereditary. I mean, the way that our households, I mean, everyone knows an African household, like how we correct things. It's always like with a bit of violence. So automatically, like growing up, it's the assumption that, okay, maybe things are sorted out with violence. If you do something bad, it's like, shy, like I will hit you. And it's like, okay, so maybe this is where it should be done. And then when we pass it down to our kids, we do the same thing because that's what we're used to.
Exactly.
And then you come in and you're like, no, there's other alternatives.
Totally.
And I think that's where we like, especially in my community. I'll speak for mine.
I know
is
that, yeah.
next level, bro.
I know that.
So I'm really
Yeah.
honored, to actually have this discussion because it's needed.
Exactly.
It's
Because
needed in
if we
households.
can just allow our youngsters to express themselves,
Yes.
because nowadays that's mistaken as backchat. Even in school, I mean, they would call in your parents if you backchat. But then to me, that is a form of expression. But I also understand where that generational pathology comes in terms of a child is seen and not heard. But that is suppression that would just lead to depression at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
because now you have to suppress all of those emotions.
And talking about emotional and the emotional literacy that young people have a deficiency in,
Yeah.
and that's where the struggle comes back to. I think that's been our biggest goal with TLT, standing for Tomorrow's Leaders in Training. As an organization, we've really sat and looked at the need across the spectrum in young people and also in adults, not just focusing on schools but in corporate spheres as
Yeah.
well. And creating the space where that emotional literacy can be taught and expressed. I mean,
Exactly.
we're sitting here, in front of us is our Allo books that we've, just launched. We were piloting them in a few schools last year, specifically in the Joburg region. But I mean, if you look at the education that young people are receiving and the lack of emotional literacy or EQ
Yeah.
that is being taught in that is why we want to talk about these things as TLT and have advocates on the topic
Yeah.
that can specialize in helping us understand where these issues are coming from
Yeah.
and help us break the stigma, create the awareness, and move forward. We don't have to repeat the cycle.
No.
And that's why we need the voices like a AB, like a TLT, coming
Yeah.
in on this and informing us on these topics. I think it's absolutely crucial. And we're so happy to have you with us, breaking those stigmas down today and also creating that awareness.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it feels like Christmas to me because this is what I do every single day. I mean, I shared something with Bliss a day ago about a 7-year-old who committed suicide on Monday. So, yeah, mental health to me is not even a teen thing or an adult thing. It's a humanity issue.
Absolutely.
It's a humanity issue. And I think the
Absolutely.
more we speak about it, I always say it's revolutionary. And if you can free someone's mind, you can free them from bondage.
Sure. Come on.
Yeah.
Preach. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because I also remember when you posted that story on the WhatsApp stories, and then the next post was like a person basically can be fit, like physically, they could be like pristine condition, but the inside could still be damaged.
Totally.
So we always tend to put a face that if we look physically fit, that mentally we are okay, whereas that is really not the case. And that is why, I mean, you in the entertainment industry, there's people such as Ricky Rick who seem to have it all, busy talking about Okotin, but inside, like they're damaged.
Yep.
It's kind of, it's crazy.
Perfectionism can also look like trauma, or trauma looks like perfectionism.
Sure.
Yeah.
Facts. Now I'm going to speak from, again, my community.
Yeah.
There's this negative connotation when it comes to mental health, getting a therapist, because I said the childhood is if you do something wrong, you get hit, or if you mention, you go to church. So how do you navigate through that? And what do you think is the case there? How do you navigate that space? Do you get like people of, African households actually coming forth? Because there's always that stigma. It's like, you don't need a therapist. That's like
Yeah.
a white people's thing. It's like, you do therapy? Like what? There's always that in the household. So how do you navigate that space?
And funny enough, someone who counsels people from all walks of life. I know my niche is young people, but from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different cultures, black, white, Indian, colored, you name it. But my challenge is Christians and black people, to be honest with you. And I think the work as a psychologist come in to break that belief. That's my work as a psychologist, to break the belief in terms of, just like you would go to the doctor, to a mechanic, to a teacher, a therapist also plays an inseparable part. You can have Jesus and a therapist.
Hallelujah.
You don't have to quarantine your faith. But I think we also live in a world where there's not enough, lack of mental health literacy, first and foremost. So when we speak about mental health, we speak about mental wellness. We all have mental health, we just don't all have mental wellness. Just like we all have physical health. But we don't all have cancer, do we? So it's basically the same thing. So when we speak about mental health, we speak about mental wellness. When we speak about a mental illness, we speak about a disorder. What is a disorder? A disorder is something that causes significant distress in someone's life. So we really have to get that mental health literacy in order, because a lot of people, the moment they hear about mental health, they think they're cuckoos. And I'm like, okay, no, but you do. I also have mental health, so it doesn't make you cuckoos. So we really have to get that cleared up. But I also think, and especially amongst men and that layered society that you just spoke about, people of color, we stigmatize mental health to also preserve this place of masculinity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is especially amongst men in general, not even color to say, but men in general, and in return damaging ourselves. To be honest with you, because like I said, if I told you needed a pill in order to breathe well, you take it. But the moment I say you need a pill to help regulate your mental health functioning and wellness, we think that's there's a problem with it. Everything is mental health, from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, and everything in between.
Got you.
So now knowing as a basis that, guys, everyone has mental health. Yes, you. We all have mental health. What can one do, and what steps can one take in the case where you realize you need to move closer to a better sphere of mental wellness? I like how you are saying that. So what are the first steps, especially for someone who's never considered therapy as an option? What steps can they take to find a therapist or to move closer to a place of holistic mental wellness?
First and foremost, I would say the moment you pick up your phone, interview us. Psychologists, therapists are totally different. I think so often I get that a lot, especially on my WhatsApp status that have become almost like a safe harbor where I would speak about certain issues. People think I'm trained in all, aspects of therapy, from relationship to work issues. And I'm like, no, interview us. We all do consultations for about 10 to 15 minutes. Also ask yourself, what is it that I want to see my therapist for? Is it work issues, relationship issues? Is it, I don't know what my issue is. I just need to sit down with someone and detox. So there's specialties for all of that. But it starts with picking up that phone and interview. Do your proper investigative research of the therapist that's out there, because so often we go to therapists who are not culturally trained. They might be trauma trained, but not culturally. So when I speak with someone of color that might have relations with multiple women, that to me should not come from a place of judgment in terms of a therapist. It should be like, okay, you know what, I'm culturally trained as well and not just trauma trained. So let's work here with not the symptom but the root cause of the issue. So please do your research. Don't just go for anyone. I know nowadays people are quite cognizant of, therapists that are the same tribe or, share cultures and stuff. Like I want to see a black therapist, I want to see a colored therapist, but they might not necessarily relate to your issue. Make sure that they are well trained in the issue that you really want them to kind of cater to.
So, especially talking about our mental well-being. I like the fact that you use that word. When someone comes to a point where they realize, oh, flip, my mental capacity or my mental state or my mental well-being is not at the place where it is, especially with today, we see so many young people not being able to identify what the steps are to come to a place of well-being, and we see so many young suicides, if we can go that far, because of people not being able to identify what to do. So what does someone do? And let's go into it, guys. Let's talk about suicide amongst our younger generation today. I mean, even as young as what, 5-7 years old.
Yeah. First, if there's a parent listening to this, and again, across the board, I'm going to answer across the board in terms of the danger signs. We look at changes in behavior. Let me say if you were an outgoing person and all of a sudden became quite secluded and depressed, or if you were quite secluded and depressed and became now the life of the party. So changes in behavior. Secondly, we look at what we call somatic complaints, and especially amongst our 7 and 5-year-olds. Somatic complaints is usually where our youngsters don't have, again, emotional literacy to express themselves and say, listen, I'm not well. But they usually use language like, I have a headache, I have a stomach ache. So look for signs like that. And then changes in grades. So often we mistake depression for laziness, procrastination. So just because the grade is going down, don't focus on the symptom of the low grade. Check in and check up on your child. Go beneath the D, go beneath the C.
Sure.
That is the important stuff. Also amongst adults, sleeping patterns. I can't sleep because I'm overwhelmed. I have anxiety. Those are all signs that we need to look out for. Activities that you love to get involved in, but you just don't enjoy anymore. So those are some of the danger signs that I can, think of right now. And especially if you are a parent, please look out for them. Because I think people assume depression is sadness and sitting in your room all day. But depression can come across as happiness sometimes. So go beneath that. And I think what I really want to echo out to anyone listening to this is check in with your child. Don't just be like, why is the dishes not done? Why is your chores not done? Because that's what actually happened with the 7-year-old. The father just kind of asked him, so why is the dishes not done? And he went to his room and he committed suicide.
Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy. Bliss, I don't know, how are you feeling, on this topic, and what do you think about suicide?
I mean, from my understanding, like what you said, that the involvement is there. But again, I'll speak from my side. There's times where you do try to ask for help. And because, again, we don't know how to express it, but then when you do express it, the parents don't know how to receive it.
Yep.
I'm not going to say which family member, but if you say, something's wrong, it's like, nah, you tripping. It's like, nah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be all right. But then it's like, no, actually, sit down. And we tend to take advantage of the smallest things, actually having a conversation. And quite frankly, women do it well. They're very quick to vent, but we just nah.
Yeah,
nah.
It's very difficult. And I mean, if I had to speak, if there's someone listening who has a 15-year-old or even an 8-year-old, or even if it's a 15-year-old listening to this, find someone.
Yes.
You look at the organization that you guys are having here. I'm sure, this is a safe space. And if we don't have the experts, we can surely refer them to experts that can stand in the gap, So often our parents, unfortunately, don't have that emotional capacity to deal with certain issues. And it's okay, but there's help out there, I personally reach out to me, and I can surely share my details with you guys as well. But there's help out there. If it's something beyond, if it's a case that's kind of higher borderline, then I can always refer. And there's so many psychologists and therapists who does pro bono services, because at the end of the day, we are not here to prostitute from people's pain, but genuinely, help.
Wow. I really like, how you're expressing the fact that, I think a lot of people also put stigma around what help looks like and the accessibility towards help.
Exactly.
And this is why we end up with, for instance, I'm thinking about a recent case in Jeffries where the fact that you said depression doesn't always look sad, it might be happy. A beautiful young girl who's someone who was generally the life and the light of a room that she walked into, took her life. And, in all the right environments, if I could say it like that, but still that is something that happened. Still it came to suicide. And, just thinking about what some of those possible reasons could be for why there wasn't maybe a pursuing of, looking for that. Sometimes we do pursue that, but we perhaps don't know how to or where the right places are. We think pursuing advice within our friends is enough. And sometimes when we don't get the tools we need, it also becomes a serious thing that people start considering in their minds. And we can talk about all the reasons for why people get to that point. Like, I'm not here to judge or even try and justify or figure out what the reasoning is behind someone who gets to that point. But my concern is the fact that people really, a lot of people really get to that point because they think that I do not have the resources to be able to go get professional help. So this is the end for me. My friend couldn't understand me, and my mom cannot talk to me. And so what is my options? And then that bracket becomes very small because a young person is not sitting with money in his or her wallet.
And that can be debilitating. But so often we do have the resources. Let me take myself for instance. I think when people think of depression or trauma, they think of catastrophic events like maybe sexual abuse or physical abuse, but it can be as simple as an unmet need from a parent. I grew up with, sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional, but grew up with a father who's an amazing, successful businessman, but just never really was a father, in terms of the nurturing and everything. And I have that trauma. So trauma is not what happened to you. Trauma is that psychic wound that we kind of sustained growing up. I think people also think that only certain segments of society deal with trauma or depression. You look at, Alan DeGeneres' DJ that took his own life a month ago, Twitch. All happy and all, the life of the party. But to be honest with you, sometimes happiness and, perfectionism, that is depression. We all have it. Sometimes it just starts with the question like, how are you? But then, do you have the time to listen to me? Or is it just a formality? So I would rather keep that to myself. I had the resources. I had the family, the financial support. It's just, to be honest with you, I didn't have the courage to speak about my pain. And, your beautiful colleague, Letzi, asked me, how did I get to this point? And I explained to her that there's a beautiful quote that I live by, an unexamined life is not worth living. So I had to assess, diagnose, and prescribe corrective measures to get to this point and really go a little bit beneath the symptom. Like I said, we deal with a lot of symptoms. Oh, so you've lost your mom at a young age, so that's trauma, an unmet need about your dad. But then the scar that I've sustained throughout my adult life, that is the scar that we need to heal.
Sure. Just hearing you speak, and I just want to commend you for even having the courage on this platform to be as vulnerable as you are right now. And I think that can really speak to our audience, that's listening in or that's watching, to see that. And I want to get back to the root of AB and what we said at the beginning. It is because of the fact that you were hurting, that you were in pain, that you had that wound, that you have become a resource to others in order to help that.
Exactly.
And I really want to encourage our listeners and people that are tuning in, do not see this, vulnerability as a sign of weakness or as a sign of being broken and not even having the potential to help others. Because there is so much light that comes through cracks.
Exactly.
You know what? There's a Japanese artistry called kintsugi. That's the word. And what it basically is they take broken pieces of china, fine china, and they mend it back together, but they mend it together with a gold putty and a gold paint. And after they've mended this fine china back together with gold, that then becomes even more valuable than the china piece was before it was broken and put together with the gold put in between the cracks.
Yeah, wow.
And that is the art of kintsugi that they practice in Japan. And I think this is the core that I want to get to with this conversation is, those cracks, when mended with gold, become valuable.
Exactly. I believe if you heal publicly, you can save so many people from dying quietly. That's why, first and foremost, why I've taken media and psychology and aligned the two. That's why I always say I don't do entertainment, I do entertainment with an I. That is what makes me distinctive from all of the other producers, because I think the arena of entertainment is it's full. And we really need to start entertaining the internal aspects of humanity, because we are losing a generation of young people at a lightning speed.
Sure.
Yep, we are.
Absolutely.
And just to give you guys 3 reasons why I think people are depressed, and I'm speaking from personal points of views. Sometimes it's loss of identity. Sometimes you don't know who you are because the entire world, usually tell you who you are. And that's why I always tell young people, stay true to who you are, even if you are the outcast. Because if you don't know who you are, I will tell you who you are. The second one is go after your dreams. I've counseled 45-year-olds who tell me, Amy, I'm an accountant, but I so badly wanted to be a singer. And they live with that regret. And also the third one, the harsh, critical words you tell yourself, because there's no supervision up here.
Sure.
It's only you, speaking to yourself up here. So those are the 3 things. It's really not, I don't even want to go too clinical with an imbalance and all of that. The first question I ask someone, your diet. Are you getting the proper nutrients? So many people, who are catering to people who are depressed would usually take them chocolate and wine. I'm like, that's not the solution. First of all, have a listening ear, and then take them a proper meal with the proper nutrients, because first of all, their body needs that, the vitamin B and all of the proper nutritions. But it's not that deep. And the reason why people are taking their own lives, as someone who tried to commit suicide more than twice, it's not because I wanted to die. I just wanted the pain to stop. It's not that I wanted to die. I honestly just wanted the pain to stop. And I define pain as pay attention inward now.
Wow.
Because what do? We sex it away. We drink it away. We party it away, we lifing it away, even if that is a word, but we never get still within ourselves. Because again, someone who suffers from trauma is someone who's disconnected from themselves. And if you're disconnected from yourself, you have basically lost yourself. So I really had to, go back to the drawing board and find out where the break was within AB and where the bleeding was coming from, and then fix that. And then obviously the propensity of the pain now, kind of helped me to grow into this field of helping others. That's why I have compassion for the perpetrator and I have compassion for the victim. Wow. Yep.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. And I like the whole idea of, the fact that you are a vessel, the fact that you did go through that, and you're using that, now you're adding value to society. And also the idea of how people sex it away, drink it away. People also look at social media. Social media dictates. And I think for the youngins now, because the TikToks, they dictate exactly how you should become.
That's it.
And immediately they mask it. And I feel like that has, I don't know from your opinion, that has a contributing factor to their mental health.
I totally agree with you because, I mean, people put, as someone who works in the media industry, people put online controlled content onto social media.
Yeah.
So as a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, I look at Jade's content, comparing her content to mine. And as we know, that beautiful quote, comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, yes.
So that can have a debilitating effect on my mental wellness because now I'm comparing my life to yours. So if you have a teen behind that cell phone whose mental capacity is at 20, it will be debilitated by default. You know, I as someone who works with college students as well, I mean, the suicide rate is high. Now, if you look at the life transitions of the college student moving away from home for the first time, stepping into the adult world for the first time with limited resources, that can also be debilitating. You know, and the suicide rate is high, and our universities and institutions don't always have the proper resources in place to help these youngsters. But I always say it starts with the conversation, and anyone can be a psychologist if you have the willingness to listen.
And I just, want to come again on this side with the fact that you mentioning how, again, a lack of resources can lead a lot of time to these suicides and these deaths and these intense deteriorations in mental well-being. But I want to get back to that acronym that you just mentioned now, and that is PAIN. Look at the pay attention inwards now. If you do not have the resources, if you feel like you do not have the resources, feel the pain. Pay attention inwards now.
Because if you can feel it, you will be able to deal with it.
Amen.
But as you know, obviously, it takes some work to get to that point. My feasible advice would be journal. You know, I journal religiously. So I never fall for this thing of I can't afford a therapist or therapy. I'm like, give your pain a voice because it's similar to speaking to someone. The only thing is, obviously, it's not a communication now, but at the end of the day, I believe, and from experience as someone who has counseled people, they are the answer to their problem. So the more you journal, you will find the light. You
Definitely.
know, but also find someone that you feel safe enough. I also believe we don't have enough safe spaces. And that is the one thing that I'm advocating for. Safe spaces in the workplace, safe spaces in schools and in organizations where people can just detox. Because, again, we face different issues, but
Absolutely.
there is a solution to this pandemic called suicide, called depression, called mental wellness. There is a solution to it. It's not that complicated as we make it.
At TLT, we always speak about the brave space,
Absolutely.
where you are brave to actually put yourself out there. And that's part of the measurement that we try to instill in people, that measure yourself. We are a form of measurement, but obviously there's other avenues, but we are that space where you get to have these conversations. And if you don't know, we find someone who knows.
Exactly. Well, my 2 cents to this would just be the moral of the story is always, we all have pain. We all have a story. Some stories are just covered in prettier book covers.
Sure.
That is what I want to end with. And therapy, mental health, it's revolutionary. I can't stop saying this. And if we can free someone's mind, we can free them from the bondage intentionally and unintentionally. And the only pharmacy you'll ever need is your mind.
Sure.
So surround yourself with positive people. Surround yourself with people who uplifts you, as cliches that might sound. But there's hope. So hold on to the hope inside of you and the hope that lies in front of you.
Amazing. That's us. Episode 1 from TLT Talks. Over and out.